Now look, this is a huge contradiction to the perception that Ryan Garcia changed his mind about Gervonta Tank Davis. Let's be honest. When we all heard of a possible fight between Pacquiao and Garcia, most of the boxing world jumped to the conclusion that Garcia has ducked Tank to chase Pacquiao. Why? Because we're hearing that the fight's been canceled. Has it? So let's talk about that. But first, Shoot the Jab is sponsored by BUSR.com. Please visit BUSR.com/showbiz to place a bet on your favorite fights. Fights like versus Burns, February 13th. Who you got? Let me know in the comments below so I can know who to bet on. So look, Pacquiao versus Garcia hasn't been canceled. This idea comes from an ESPN article written by columnist Salvador Rodriguez. The article is titled Manny Pacquiao, Ryan Garcia, Fight Not Happening. Promotions executive says. But let's be honest. In this day and age, most of us don't read the articles, just respond to the headlines. In the article, it is stated that Golden Boy executive Eric Gomez contacted us. But it turns out there's nothing to talk about. That fight is not happening. But if you read a few sentences further, it says, however, Guadalupe Valencia, who represents Garcia, told The Athletic that the door is still open for the fight to take place. So we're discussing terms. Manny and Ryan Vincent and instructed their team to make it happen. So that's what we're trying to accomplish. So the fight is being worked on. The biggest hurdle is who's going to pay for it. Let's be honest here. Manny Pacquiao versus Ryan Garcia is a huge fight, but it's a fight most people feel is one-sided, on the side of the more accomplished, more skilled, and more experienced Manny Pacquiao. So, the fight has been agreed on by both Manny and Ryan, but is the money there? Now, Ryan Garcia says Manny Pacquiao was the one who wanted the fight and reached out to him.
They call me.
Does this sound like, well, if you listen to what Eric Gomez said in the ESPN article, the first thing he said was, they contacted us. And since us is Golden Boy, it is safe to assume that they are Team Pacquiao. Let's go one step further here. Before the Conor McGregor-Poirier fight, when Pacquiao was asked who he wanted to fight next, he said McGregor, Spence, or Crawford, with McGregor being the one he wants to fight the most.
There are three names, right? There's Terence Crawford, Errol Spence, Conor McGregor. Who most likely would you want to face?
McGregor.
McGregor.
Now, after McGregor lost, Pacquiao said he was looking at a fight with Spence, Crawford, or Ryan Garcia.
Crawford, Spence, Garcia.
2022.
Yeah, it's like my son.
The question is, why replace McGregor with Garcia? Why have three choices? If you have McGregor, Spence, or Crawford next, once McGregor got out and no longer an option, why wouldn't that just make your choice an even easier choice with only two options? Why? Because he doesn't want Spence or Crawford. But Spence or Crawford, he even allowed for his welterweight or WBA title to be stripped. What I'm saying here is I believe he went from McGregor to Garcia. He only mentioned Spence and Crawford out of integrity. It's all consistent to me. Yes, Manny is an icon, but yes, he wanted Garcia. Why? The same reason he wanted McGregor. He's 42 years old. His best years are behind him. He's looking for a low-risk fight for the biggest reward. McGregor was perfect. But since he can't fight McGregor now, who's left? A YouTuber? Well, he does need someone with a huge social media influence, but someone that isn't a threat. Ryan Garcia. Thanks for shooting the jab with the biz. Showbiz, well, don't. Huh? Huh? Y'all not arguing for the fight to happen. Y'all arguing against other fans. And y'all
Now, I've talked about different.
As if they'd gotten through and could have gotten through the lines. Don't know. But the police officer didn't know either and was defending the Capitol. And under those conditions, yeah, that was the right shot. I only disagree with you about education, when somebody says, and I don't know what I say about education that you would disagree about. Somebody says only when you're anti-Trump. I've never been anti-Trump. I've always been the same. Some things he did that I liked, some things he didn't. It's the same thing I say about AOC. There's no difference. Why can't you just be for things that are good and against things that are bad? Why do you have to be for Trump and against Trump? That doesn't even make sense. The only thing that really bothers me is when you say the flu doesn't kill people. What I say is that the regular seasonal flu probably doesn't kill anywhere near the number that they report. Now, obviously, if you're weak enough, pretty much anything can kill you, right? It doesn't take much if you're weak enough. So I'm not going to say that nobody's ever died from the seasonal flu, but the numbers that we got from 30 to 80,000 people a year dying from the regular flu, I would bet every penny I have that that's exaggerated and a lot. And I base it on the fact that we don't know anybody who dies from the regular flu. But as soon as we got that same number of people dying from coronavirus, everybody knew somebody. At around 50, 80,000 deaths from coronavirus, we all knew somebody who at least knew somebody who died of it. But still, I don't know anybody who died of regular flu. My whole life, never heard of it. So you know that number's pretty high, but it doesn't mean that nobody died of the flu. Now, let me, to this point, one of the problems that I have in communication quite often is that I speak in absolutes when I believe that I understand it's not an absolute. And that confuses X percentage of the population, and I'm always amazed when it happens. People don't have the same, let's say, reading or hearing comprehension. So let me make a general statement. When I say things like nobody dies of the regular seasonal flu, how do you hear that? Do you hear that as literally not one person died? Because you should. If I say something that's an absolute of that nature, you should be translating that in your mind to, oh, he means it would be rare or not many people or mostly, right? That's how your brain should interpret that. But I think that maybe people speak in accidental absolutes because I assume that you know it's not an absolute. But people will still call me out and say, it's not an absolute. To which I say, I didn't even think that was a possibility that you would take it that way. So I do have that problem communication-wise, and I speak in absolutes more than I should. Will I take calls again? Yeah, probably, at some point. But I would want to use different technology for that. We should take you seriously, but not literally. On the absolutes, yes. That's how you should take me. Be precise in your speech, says Peterson. Yes, you should. You should be precise. Yeah, the absolutes are hyperbole in a sense. That would be reasonable to say. Somebody says they die from secondary causes like pneumonia. Yeah, I suppose and I should say few people die of it. And it's yeah, I think it is lazy. I think that's it is lazy to speak in absolutes and assume that the audience understands it that way. That would be fair. Pneumonia is always a small guy, somebody says. Poor pneumonia. It gets blamed for it. All right. If this is a health issue, then why no one says to get some sun and get a walk and lose some weight? Well, I said that. Wasn't I the first person who told you when the pandemic started that you should walk every day and that you should get some sun and get your vitamin D? I hear people say it all the time. So if you're saying that we're not being told that, the government isn't, they're not all over it, that's for sure. But they have said that. I mean, I think Fauci and Birx have probably said vitamin D is good for you, probably more than once. Said people who die from the flu are listed as dying from something else. Yeah, for the very old, I'm sure that's true. But I don't think there are 50-year-olds who are dying from the flu. Or should I say, very few of them. See how easily it is for me to get into absolutes. All right. That is all I've got to say for today. Somebody says 80,000 people died from the seasonal flu in 2018. What I'm telling you is they don't count them. Do you know where the 80,000 come from? It's an estimate based on how many people died compared to how many people usually die. That difference must be the fact. I'm oversimplifying it a little bit, but it's like that. Nobody counts them. So nobody counted and got 80,000. They just looked at a bunch of statistics and said, well, looks like it could have been 80,000. All right, that's it for now. I'll talk to you tomorrow. Bye. All right, YouTubers, have anything fascinating to ask me? Somebody says 55% of COVID deaths have the flu. I don't know what that means. Who killed Ashley Babbitt? It was one of the police officers. Scott, if Bigfoot could believe China has a 100-year plan, no, China has a plan for dominating the world. That they say it. A number of Chinese officials have said it in public directly. So it's definitely not a conspiracy to imagine that China wants to. I would say that's as true as anything could be. Somebody says you assume zero cost of wearing masks. No, I don't. A lot of people have been saying that, but why would I assume something dumb? Why would I assume that? The people who say you have not considered the negative impacts of wearing masks, to which I say everybody's considered that. There's nobody in the world who hasn't considered that. Every single person who put on a mask thinks while they're doing it, man, there's a downside to this. It's probably got a big downside too. Everybody considers it. So don't imagine I haven't considered the obvious. It would be one thing to imagine I hadn't considered something that's not obvious. That would be a reasonable statement. But when you say somebody hasn't considered the most obvious part of the whole question, you're not really a serious player. We all consider all the big stuff. It may be some weird thing I don't consider. That would be worth bringing up. But don't say I haven't considered the most essential part of the entire conversation.
Oh.
All right. Play chess. Just looking at your comments now. If you look at this on audio, it must be painful because you can't see the comments. How is the education system affecting U.S. politics? Well, in a dangerous way. We're letting our least capable citizens train our children, which are our teachers. I'll just leave that statement there. Our least capable citizens are training our children. Good citizens. Except it would be, of course, my sister. In case you're listening. So there again is one of my absolute statements. It of course is not true. Every teacher is somehow less good than every other citizen. So you should recognize that as obvious hyperbole. But my point is, what makes teachers the moral standard? They might be very good at teaching, the elements of education. But if they're also teaching you how to be a good moral, ethical citizen, do they take classes in that? What exactly is their qualification to teach your children how to be people, as opposed to teaching them how to read, which would be fine? So when I say they're the least capable, I mean that they don't have any training that I'm aware of on what it takes to be a good citizen. All right, where's your check? All right, that's all for today. I will talk to you tomorrow. Come in. Happy Groundhog Day. Probably one of the best holidays of the whole year. Yeah, Groundhog Day. A lot of people like their Christmas. They like their 4th of July. But I'm kind of a Groundhog Day kind of a guy all the way. And it's Groundhog Day because, once again, they're trying to impeach President Trump, as they do every year at this time. It's Groundhog Day. I stole that joke from Joel Pollack on Twitter. I've been laughing all morning about how our government has somehow become like a Groundhog Day. And I'm thinking, if you were to describe a government that was not doing its job, and you were trying to pick the right movie, well, you could go with the Idiocracy. But Groundhog Day would be a good one. And if you'd like to enjoy this Groundhog Day to its maximum, I know you do, what do you need besides a groundhog? I mean, you're going to need at least one groundhog. But you also need a copper mug or glass of Dagger Charles Stein that can't be Dagger glass, a vessel of any kind. Fill it with your favorite liquid, not with a groundhog. No, they don't belong in a copper mug or glass. Fill it with your favorite liquid. I like coffee. Join me now for the unparalleled pleasure of WGNT. I think it makes everything better. Stop this out and take a sip. Okay. I think we got the simultaneity right. Sometimes I'll be off half a beat, but no, this time I nailed it. Nailed it. All right. What else is going on? According to Rasmussen poll, 2/3 of voters, roughly, say that insiders manipulate the stock market. What? 2/3 of citizens, I guess it doesn't matter if you lean left or lean right, the number's about the same. 2/3 of the citizens think the stock market is rigged. Or at least that it's being manipulated by insiders. And here's the funny part. Who are the 1/3? Who are the 1/3 of this public who don't think insiders are manipulating the stock market? Who are these people who believe the stock market is fair? Andy No, you know Andy No, spelled G-N-O. Seen lots of his videos of Antifa. And he's got a new book coming out that Antifa and his haters would like to cancel. So here's Andy No reporting on very important stuff of great national interest to the Antifa situation. I think he was driven out of the country, threatened. And now he's got a book. It's called Unmasked. And you can find it. Just Google Unmasked and Andy No, N-G-O. And this is me buying his book. Placing my order on Amazon. Done. Whenever there's a book that somebody's trying to ban, or a person or a product, I'm just going to automatically buy it. So that's going to be my new habit. I'm not going to look at the description of the product. If it's something, in the consumer level of expense, I'm just going to buy it. It's just going to be automatic. And I think Andy's book was already number 54 on Amazon's bestseller list. Do you know how hard it is to be number 54 on Amazon's bestseller list? It's pretty hard. It's pretty hard. Well, let's see if we can get him to number 1. He's number 1 in all of the important political categories. Let's see if we can get him number 1 on all of Amazon. And maybe in the future, there will be people who say to themselves, hey, maybe we should boycott this product or this book. And the moment they say it, that should make the person who made that book or product rich. You should get rich as a result of people trying to kill you. I can't make it happen myself, but I can buy their products, and if you do as well. Let's see if we can push Andy up to number 1. Principle. Freedom. Yeah, Goya beans. I also bought the Goya Mexican food products that I don't think I ever ate. I think I put it in the cupboard. But the moment I heard that he was going to get canceled, the CEO of Goya Foods, I said, well, I'm going to get me some of that. I went directly to the store and bought a bunch of his products. So that's my new habit. If you like freedom, maybe it could be your habit too. AOC is making news, as she is doing. She did a live stream, I think it was on Instagram, and she talked about her experience during the Capitol assault, and she was afraid. And she said, I guess the first time in public, she said that she was a survivor of sexual abuse. Now, I say this often, much to your chagrin. The same standard that I used for Trump, I apply to AOC. That's fair, right? Same standard. The standard is you might like or not like his or her policies, but if we could just look at their technique, their persuasion technique, how they communicate, oh my God, they're good, right? And AOC is, she wouldn't want to hear this, but she is sort of the female Trump. Probably the last thing she'd want to hear, but in terms of technique, it's just A+, just consistently A+, just for technique. You don't have to like the policies, right? Separate decision. But this, doing a live stream, which is exactly the right way to do it, combining her story of personal trauma with surviving sexual abuse, you could argue that doesn't belong in the story about the Capitol, but she made it belong. She made it belong. And technique-wise, it's just really good. Like you could put yourself in the scene, you could feel it, you probably connected it to something you've experienced before. If you're a woman, chances are you've had some, ugly sexual situation in your past.
104
Most
BPM.
do, unfortunately. So technique-wise, it was freaking good. Right? Gotta say, it was good. Technique-wise. But that's not the only thing to consider. She is perpetuating what I call the big lie. Now, the big lie is that the election was known to be transparent and free of fraud. That's not true. What we do know is that no widespread fraud was recognized by any court. That's also true. Right? That's true. There's no court that recognized any widespread fraud in the election. So we can say that unambiguously because no matter what did or did not happen in the election, it's just a fact that no court ruled or acknowledged any widespread fraud. Now, it's worth saying that the court is not the right tool for that. It is also true that there is no toaster that solves world. You know why? Well, toasters don't do that. That's not one of the things a toaster does. A toaster is going to make toast, except for mine. Mine will only make toast on one side. That's my problem. So it doesn't mean anything.